Most of this movie was taken over 60 years ago, and it's about a trip from Canoe, Ontario, north all up to White Dog Falls. It's about this little boy who started going to camp when he was 9 years old. He grew up in a modest house in Winnipeg, worked at several camps, and always had the idea of going on a canoe trip. And he finally met his dream. A small 8mm camera recorded this adventure, which you will now see. The leader of this expedition put this video together, and in those days it wasn't quite as easy to do with what you can do now. So you will see some changes and additions. And here's what it looked like then. This is the motley crew, 7 of us, and our leader and director is upper right hand corner. And of course the star of the whole movie is here. And in the way it had to be done at that time, Bill traced out the route, showing us going to Pala, Camp Pala first, and carried on northward until we got to a point called White Dog Falls. Of course, these days, you can put a few more effects into it. And this is the way you can show it now, using Google Maps. And that's where the falls were, coming out of that big lake. So the crew finally got their act together and started off on their adventure. The footage you see now, somehow our leader, Bill Skinner, took while we were paddling. And of course we all had hats to protect ourselves from the sun, but most of us were trying to get a summer tan. And we carried on the first leg of our journey. Until we finally reached Camp Pala, a YMCA camp for adults, who gave us a little lift just like this. Of course, since the trip was being funded by the Camp Manitou budget, we had to get a little advertising in there. And of course, we loved the blueberries in Ontario and had our fill. There was no such thing as saving them for later. Then Bill Owen and Bill McElhern decided they got to go out early morning to catch some fish for breakfast. So off they went. So some of the group got up and on the rocks as usual started putting breakfast together for everybody. And there were others who maybe needed a little bit of nudging to get started in the morning, and there was always somebody willing to do that. And lo and behold, the 2 Bills came back from their morning fishing experience. And guess what? They actually caught one. Of course, it had to go along with all the other food stuff like crayfish, which I don't think anybody really ever ate. So the trip carried on as usual, with the occasional pit stop for breaks and meals. And we carried on until we got to the headwaters of the rapids. Of course, that called for a portage to get to our destination campsite. So we loaded up and carried everything across the breakwaters. So we stood there, looking at the beauty of White Dog Falls, and I remember saying to myself, why can't people live with this beauty of the running water and gorgeous environment? So we camped upstream on the sloping rocks, and for some reason we had a little difficulty waking up the next morning. Unfortunately, we finally had to start our long leg home and got a local voyageur to take this footage of us starting off. Truthfully, we didn't see one other human being on our whole trip, so we were sort of casual about what we were wearing and whether we wore anything at all. But we knew the cameras were rolling on this scene, so look at that, I actually covered myself up. Except in the evening, and what the heck. Of course, everybody had to clean up after themselves. And then Bill thought he had to get a little bit more sponsorship promotion going. And we carried on as usual for the rest of the evening. Actually, that evening it wasn't usual. We decided to build a Indian sweat lodge. It looked something like this, where we would fire up and heat rocks, take them into the center, and then sprinkle water on the rocks. The tradition was, though, that you're supposed to come directly out of the steam bath and plunge directly into the lake. But one of us had a little trouble with that. So Louis achieved his dream of a canoe trip. And guess what? He also achieved his other dream of how people can live. Well, it took a bit of work, but we're able to build the home of our dreams amongst all this beauty, which would not have been possible without a very lovely and cooperative partner.